Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I can claim with about 99% certainty that NATO declared war to Russia. De facto war. That is, they didn't send a declaration of war to Russia. If you look at it in the past about 80 years and even more, there was no declarations of war. There was just a special military operation, or it was called a humanitarian intervention, bringing freedom and democracy. They were not wars, but they qualified as wars. I will show you here evidence that we, or the garbage in Ukraine, reached a critical phase. That is nuclear war. You might say, oh my God, you just know. No, I will show you. I will show you. NATO passed a resolution, I think on the 26th, calling to provide Ukraine with long-range or mid-range missiles. Now, those are Tomahawks. Tomahawks can go about what? 1,500 kilometers, miles? I will show you all that. Now, that is a really long range, which that means the most important Russian arsenal could be struck by these missiles from Ukraine, supposedly. Now, Putin, the bad dude from Russia, said if these guys use long-range missiles like ATACMS, that means we are at a nuclear war. We can push that. It falls under our protocol to use nuclear weapons. They already sent that ICBM with no warhead. There was no explosives. As a last warning, it couldn't be hit. It just went in Ukraine. If you remember, it was in Donetsk, in Dnipropetrovsk, in Dnipropetrovsk, wasn't it? Dnipro? Now, let me show you the NATO resolution, and I will read it, and then I will read about 1, 2, 3, 4 titles, and maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs from those articles, where they tell us that NATO really will send long-range missiles. That implies, according to Russia, nuclear strikes, or hitting NATO military infrastructure responsible for helping the Ukrainians to launch those missiles. Because according to the Russians, and I think it's common knowledge, I don't have to tell you that those missiles are not operated or done from A to Z by the Ukrainians. There must be, that's what Putin said, so in their mind, crazy minds I know, is those things could not be operated without US support, direct involvement. It means you are at war with us and we want to hit you. So if you have a command post in, let's say, in Arlington, Virginia, the Russians reserve the right, they said, Putin, was where he was right, reserve the right to hit those targets that support the launching of long-range missiles attacks on their territory, Russian territory. So that tells you what? We can reserve our right to hit you. And the other guys are, you know what? We're going to do even more than ATACMS. We're going to send maybe Tomahawks. They're going to hit even deeper. If you look at Russia, if you look at Russian territory, most of their nuclear deterrent is based towards an industry, and Russia per se is located west. So it's just a small portion of Russian Federation that is really active. I'm not going to take the big part in between that is just like nothing. And the end a little bit with Vladivostok. All right, so let's start with the resolution. This is the resolution. This is from NATO Parliamentary Assembly. All right, here we have it. Resolution 494. NATO after the Washington Summit. Future proofing the alliance and supporting Ukraine until victory. That means victory what? I tell you what the victory looks like. Russia will be under total control of these guys here. Not these guys here, that guy's in charge of these guys. Because it's not going to be the generals, they're going to be in charge, they're going to make profits out of Russia. It's going to be the big industries, banking industry, it's going to be the economic interest. It's going to be the military industrial complex, which is what? The arms manufacturing companies. And there's going to be obviously the energy. It's going to suck dry Russia of its natural resources. So this is what they plan. This is the total the victory of Ukraine. Not to push back the Russians. Ukraine is a rich country, has some rare minerals over there that these guys want. Remember, Lindsey Graham said, Oh, it's about $3 trillion worth, gonna make America rich and so on. All right, let's read this one. So the assembly, they tell us that the Euro-Atlantic region to ability to adopt a resolution and reaffirming its unwavering commitment. What unwavering? That means you just 100% you go over there, unwavering. Exactly as Zelensky-Stein told the Europeans to do to the other Europeans, which are the Russians. So the Zelensky-Steins have to tell us what to do, to share democratic values. Democratic values like what? Like United States of America? Or like what? Like Ukraine? There's no elections there. Including individual liberty. Yeah, say something over there and post something online and you're going to see human rights. Really? Where is the Orthodox Church over there affiliated with the Russian? No. And the rule of law, again, this is all BS. Didn't Ukraine ban certain political parties, democracy, they say, democratic values? Didn't they ban some media outlets that they didn't like? That's again in liberties and freedom of speech. Freedom of the press, human rights. Weren't those 4 guys arrested and then they're on house arrest for posting Kiev Russian attack on Kiev? Just lights coming in, weren't they? Oh, it's a war, Emil. It's a martial law. You understand? What if this martial law is forever in Ukraine? What if they decide to have it like that? They're at continuous war. All right, and it says, which is the foundation of alliance. Now let's move on. All right, welcoming the decisions taken in the recent summits, acknowledging they need this, with stressing that the condemning in the strongest terms Russia's ongoing illegal, unprovoked and unjustified war of aggression of Ukraine. So if the Russians provide you with their justification and they say, you know what, NATO, you are right here with your infrastructure, Ukraine was supposed to be neutral, you guys help those guys to overthrow a government, legitimate and democratic. Isn't that enough for us to feel, threatened, and is our security threatened? Now, if you say no, then I would like you to do the same thing when the Russians will deploy missiles, let's say in Cuba, Nicaragua, or Venezuela. These are the 3 ones that are the most, So again, aggression, Ukraine, continued illegal temporary reaffirming, they reaffirm with your lives, reaffirming unwavering support. That means we're going to be there, man, 100%. Crazy. Support for Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity within internationally recognized borders. You fucked up Yugoslavia. Soviet Union disintegrated. You, or they, decided to part away, which are the Czechoslovakia. So what are you talking about? These things happened before, not through aggression. Well, I remember a state that was formed from thin air. Do you remember that one? So this is not like, oh my God, there's no precedent. I'm not saying there's a good precedent. But if you want to be just, look what you ask someone to do that you would not agree you to do. All right, let's go further. As right here, to make support, and this is what they say they will support Ukraine. Establishing NATO security assistance and training for Ukraine. They've been doing this anyway. Now they make it just, how to put it, let us know in terms. Taking forward the establishment of the NATO-Ukraine joint analysis. That is joint, planning. Training and educational center, announcing a pledge of long-term security assistance for Ukraine with the intention of minimum baseline funding of minimum. Baseline is the $40 billion next year. All right, so this is what it is. And I think it's something about being part of NATO as well, right? Isn't that? Right here, Ukraine's irreversible path toward full NATO membership. And the Russians should just sit down, right? So remember, Ukraine was supposed to be neutral after 1994 Budapest Memorandum, remember? Who broke that? I tell you, in 2008. In 2008, George W. Bush, that guy in Bucharest NATO summit, he said one day Ukraine and Georgia will join NATO. They were not supposed to. They were supposed to be what? Neutral. So who broke that verbally? So they've been working at that. 2014, they didn't like what Viktor Yanukovych was doing, so they overthrew him. And then they recognized the thugs. Not the democratically elected government. No, the other guys who overthrew the democratically elected government. So here is irreversible path towards full NATO membership. That is a declaration of war. And then we have something else that I want to show you here. and that's very important as well. And here is, they talk about the Russian war crimes, right? Reckless, saber rattling, which pose a direct threat to Euro-Atlantic stability. So they are the victims. It was not they, NATO, going towards Russia. No, it was Russia going towards NATO. Remember the 5, I think, waves of enlargement of NATO came like, you say, well, it's legal. Okay, it's legal, but you come towards me. What am I supposed to do? Put yourself in Russia's shoes. But somehow, now that these guys are reacting, unprovoked and defendable, right? You came to me and you tell me you're the victim now when I smack you? All right, so this is what these guys say. Remember, we're going to be part of NATO. Clear right there. Russia says that's not going to happen. And we have nuclear weapons. And they say, oh, it's just a reckless nuclear saber rattling. What am I supposed to do? Be fucked in the ass with a loaded gun and you have knives? Is that I'm supposed to do? Just take it? All right. Let's go to the next portion of this video, which has to do with these guys' statements, which is clear. Request for Tomahawk. What NATO PA resolution means for Ukraine. The NATO Parliamentary Assembly has passed a resolution calling for the provision of Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. Right that, and we have here, these guys are, as far as I know, the resolution mentioned the need to provide Ukraine with ballistic and medium range missile with ranges between, right there, 1,000 and 2,500 kilometers. I believe it's generally referred to medium range missiles. Now with this one, with that little thing, I'm going to show you on the map, the Ukrainians, NATO will strike at will, they think, any part of this right here. So if you go and you start, let's say, from this area, far from the contact line, let's say, or the border, you can hit Moscow at ease. I think it's about 700 kilometers from the border to Moscow, or about that, or 700 miles. Doesn't really matter because these guys have a bigger range. Got it? Next one. NATO calls to give medium range missiles to Ukraine, but there are any to spare? Oh, the problem is not, the discussion is not about, shooting. Do we have enough bullets to shoot? What do you think Russia will do? And I'm going to show you next. Interfax, NATO PA calls for increased support of Ukraine through long-range missiles, air defense systems, fighter jets. And let's go to the last one. Again, this is from Military Pop. NATO calls for long-range missiles for Ukraine. The Russians said, if these guys allow their victims, which are the Ukrainians are the victims. The main victims are the Ukrainians, not Zelensky. Zelensky's dying. No. The Ukrainian nation is the biggest victim here. The second one is the Russians. The third one is us. Us, meaning not the United States of America, Americans. No, we, the baboons, the plebeians, not they. They think that if Russia strikes, let's say, crazy war, they will do it only in Ukraine. And we will test our weapons. And we can take care of it. But the Russians, they say, oh, if the Russians going to hit Europe, still okay for them. It's not us. But the Russians hit us, we're going to stop everything. Why? You and I will be hit. They will not be hit. They have bunkers and other things. So again, Putin said clearly, they're at the 23rd hour of the day. The Russians. They launched a ICBM, said we can strike and we will strike. Putin said it. They lowered the threshold of using nuclear weapons. These guys are pushing because we are the victims. They come, I don't allow myself to be a pig and say, you know what? Yeah, man, these guys want to destroy our way of life. And no, that's not the case. That's not the case. They, because I don't like to put us all together like the American nation together with those guys that are not. Or the Ukrainian nation with the guys in charge of them, they are not. So these guys are going to push it. And the Russians said, we're going to do it. All right, these guys said, okay, let's see how you do it. We, which is they, moved towards Russia. Now you can say, again, it's within our right to do it and the countries to decide for themselves. I agree with that. But again, there's interest. If Russia will, as I said, Cuba or maybe Mexico, say, okay, we're going to receive here about, I don't know, a small contingent of about 50,000 Russians in Mexico, and we're going to put some air defense systems here and so on. Do you think that that's the decision of a sovereign country, Mexico, independent country, now with a Zelensky-Stein president? Good job for you too. You can find a Mexican. All right. So nevertheless, so what's going to happen? Do you think the Americans going to say, well, it's within your right, Mexico, to put whatever other armies and other air defense systems of other countries on your territory? We're okay with that. You know it's not going to be acceptable. You know why? National security threat. But the Russians should not have anything like that. You know why? Because these guys, NATO, United States of America, they identified as good. It's good. So if they identified as good, they say, why would you bother? No. You should not have any problems because I identify as good. It's like police officer stops you at a traffic stop and he unholsters his gun, points at you and say, can I have your, I don't know, license and registration, please, and proof of insurance? Then you say, whoa, what are you doing? Don't worry, I'm a good guy. I'm just pointing this gun at you because I'm a good guy and you possibly are a criminal right now because maybe you committed an infraction right here. Right? What would you do about that? You say, well, put it the other way around, as always, and see if that works. And I can give you many, many examples with all this. Like, people say, the cops, the first thing they ask you, can I search your car? You say, no. Why? Are you hiding something? Motherfucker, it's not your business what the fuck I have in my car. Unless you have a suspicion that I commit a crime, which you don't. If you have it, just utter it right now, clearly, what that is. And if you don't, am I free to go? Why? Because he can shoot you if you just leave and without him ordering you. Am I being detained? Am I free to go? That's what you should ask. And it's going to be skirting. If he says you've been detained, he has to give you a reason, a clear, not because, hey, you got brown eyes or something. No, he has to tell because I suspect, and I have reason to suspect that you have in a trunk something. And you may, based on what? They can do whatever they want anyway, but I'm just saying. So remember, those guys who identify as good came to the guys that they themselves, again, identified as bad. But the Russians do not have the same right to say, no, we are the good ones and you are the bad ones. Now, if you think that NATO is good, tell me about the bombardment of Yugoslavia. Tell me about the bombardment of Libya. Tell me about the invasion of Iraq. Tell me about the invasion of Afghanistan, bombardment of Syria, American troops deployed illegally in Syria, national territory, independent sovereign country. Look what's going on over there in the Middle East right now. NATO, United States of America and two other jackals, they stay, weasels. They stay with the guns pointed to the outside world, not to intervene, while the other guys rapes who you know who. And this is us. Them, identifying as good and telling you that you're good too. No. So what would Russia do? Russia will use nuclear weapons. I'm 99.9% certain. Or, I don't know, they're going to get And I don't think that's the case. Is this a declaration of war? I think it is. It's like someone comes to you and say, hey, if you come closer, I'm going to use my, Ruger here or whatever I have. I'm ready for you if you come closer. And he keeps coming. So I have the right to come over, but he holds a gun towards you. I'm coming over. And you say, I'm going to use it. And what are you going to do? Okay, man, okay. Why would you do that? You have the exact same power to stop the motherfucker. And you pull it out. And you say, click, boom, it's Russians are already at a warning shot already. They're not in unholstered gun. They're not over there yet. They are with a gun in the hand, shot and warning shot, which is that ICBM on the Dnipropetrovsk. And the guys are still saying, oh my God, you're threatening me. Back the fuck off. Thank you very much for being with me again today. This is a war, and they're going to push it until their interests get hurt, which is when their international banking system gets hurt by the Russians, when the energy sector gets hurt a little bit, and the military-industrial complex, which is not producing more weapons. I don't know, some Rheinmetall blown up, or even that is going to... What the hell is going on here? Last night, heroin or something? All right? Or these guys with Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or logistics and blah, 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 blah. When these guys are going to be really hurt, this guy's going to stop it. Right now, they have a feast. They're eating like pigs and they have big profits. Why? Just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. Like you win lotteries every other week. It's just a coincidence. When was the last time you won any? But these guys are just a coincidence with the war. I mean, Emil, come on now. You just look at it differently from the other side. No, do you think that the banking system, the lobby, and these guys, the big three that I mentioned, do you think they had nothing to do with the politicians? All right, if you think not, well then, go and vote. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.